Have you ever wondered how far a single act of kindness can reach? How a simple choice, a simple moment, can quietly save someone who looks completely fine on the outside? Let me tell you a story you won't forget in a hurry. His name was Daniel. Daniel had rich brown skin, tightly coiled curls, and a gentle face that tried every day to hide how tired he really felt. A boy who used to laugh easily, talk loudly, and believe deeply that life had space for him. But life doesn't always stay soft. Sometimes it tightens around you quietly until breathing feels like a task. Daniel was in that place. At home, the walls carried the weight of arguments he never started, but always heard. His parents were drifting slowly, painfully, and their tension spilled into everything. Meals, mornings, weekends. Daniel learned to walk quietly, to avoid asking questions, to disappear. At school, things weren't easier. His best friend moved away, leaving Daniel alone in a sea of people who laughed at things he didn't find funny and cared about things he didn't care about. He wasn't bullied, but sometimes silence hurts just as much as cruelty. He hid it well. Smiles, jokes, I'm fine. But the truth was heavier than any book bag he ever carried. Some mornings he stared at the mirror wondering when he stopped recognizing himself. Some nights he lay awake replaying conversations, wishing someone would notice the storm behind his eyes. And little by little he convinced himself that he was alone. But what Daniel didn't know was that someone completely unexpected was about to change everything. One cold evening, Daniel walked home after another exhausting day. Hood up, hands in pockets, eyes low, just trying to get through the next minute, the next step. The city felt colder than usual. People rushed past, heads down, wrapped in their own worlds. No one saw him, or so he thought. It was then he noticed someone ahead, an older man sitting beside a grocery shop, wrapped in a thin blanket, shivering. His light brown skin was creased with age and experience, his beard peppered with gray, and his eyes warm-filled with a kind of quiet wisdom people often walk past without noticing. His clothes were worn, his hands trembling, his face tired from stories no one had asked to hear. People walked past him like he was invisible. Some even turned their heads away. Daniel wasn't in the mood for anything. Not kindness, not conversation, not connection. He felt empty, exhausted, but something made him stop just for a second. Maybe it was the way the man's eyes followed every passerby, hoping someone might acknowledge him. Maybe it was how familiar that feeling of invisibility suddenly looked. Or maybe it was the universe whispering, "Pay attention." The man looked up and whispered, "Cold night, isn't it?" A simple sentence. But sometimes the simplest words are the ones that break through walls. Daniel nodded. Then the man smiled, a small smile, a tired smile, but a real one. "What's heavy on your mind, young man?" he asked gently, not intrusively, just noticing him, really seeing him. And what Daniel said next wasn't dramatic, but it changed everything. Daniel didn't pour out his problems. He didn't cry. He didn't confess anything deep. He just said, "I'm tired." Really tired. The man nodded, as though he understood every unspoken word hiding behind that sentence. "Sit," he said softly, tapping the ground beside him. And Daniel did. Two strangers. Different worlds, same silence. They sat in the cold, sharing a moment that didn't need explanations. They talked about small things. The weather, the day, the noise of the city, the way people rush without looking up. The man told Daniel stories from years ago, funny stories, embarrassing ones, moments where he'd messed up and learned the hard way. Daniel found himself laughing for the first time in weeks. But then, the man's tone shifted. "You know," he said quietly, "you matter more than you think. Even when the world feels too loud. even when your mind tells you otherwise. Daniel froze. It was like the man had reached into his chest and touched the exact words he needed, words nobody else thought to say. Whatever you're carrying, the man continued, don't carry it alone. Find someone who listens. There's always someone. And if there isn't, come find me. I'll listen. Daniel didn't know whether to cry or laugh. He just nodded, feeling something he hadn't felt in months. Seen, valued, human again. Eventually, Daniel stood to leave. But before he did, he handed the man the sandwich he had just bought for himself. A small gesture, nothing grand. Yet the man's eyes softened. Thank you, he whispered. You just made my night. But Daniel knew the truth. The stranger was the one who saved his. As Daniel walked home, something shifted. Not the problems, those were still there. But the heaviness felt shareable, bearable. That night, Daniel's encounter with the stranger didn't magically fix his life. But it planted something inside him, a seed he didn't recognize yet. For the first time in months, he walked home with a strange lightness. Not happiness, not relief, just a sense of possibility. A feeling he had forgotten. Maybe I don't have to go through this alone. Over the next few days, he found himself thinking about the man's words. You matter more than you think. And whatever you're carrying, don't carry it alone. He replayed them during classes, during quiet moments, even during arguments at home. And slowly, those words pushed him to do something he had avoided for a long time. He asked for help, not with a dramatic speech, not with tears. Just a small sentence to his school counselor. I think I need someone to talk to. And for the first time, someone listened, really listened. They didn't judge. They didn't rush him. They just gave him space to breathe, something he hadn't had in months. Little by little, Daniel began opening up. Some days he spoke freely. Other days he said almost nothing. But he kept showing up. At home, things didn't get perfect, but they got more honest. His parents agreed to counseling of their own. Arguments didn't vanish, but they softened, became less explosive, more like conversations than battles. Daniel also started reconnecting with classmates. He joined a small art group after school, a quiet place where no one expected him to be cheerful or loud. They just let him exist, be present, create, and through that, he slowly rebuilt parts of himself. But here's the part that matters most. He never forgot the stranger. Weeks later, Daniel went back to the grocery shop. Back to the place they'd met, but the old man wasn't there. Not the next day. Not the day after that. So Daniel asked the shop owner, Do you know the man who sits outside sometimes? The owner nodded. Oh, him? He doesn't stay in one place long. But he comes by now and then. Good man, quiet, kind. Daniel felt a pang of disappointment, but also warmth. He didn't need to find the man to thank him. The man had already given him what he needed. A reminder that humanity still exists, that he mattered, that he wasn't invisible, and that one moment, one evening on a cold pavement, had changed the trajectory of his life. 1 year later, Daniel stood outside the same grocery shop holding 2 cups of warm tea, and there he was. The old man sitting in his familiar spot, blanket tucked around him. Daniel approached, heart pounding. The man looked up and smiled instantly. You're back, he said. Daniel smiled. I wanted to say thank you. You didn't just make my night that day. You changed my life. The old man chuckled softly. I didn't do much. You did enough, Daniel replied. You reminded me that people care. Even strangers. For a moment, they sat together again, just like before. 2 people, different worlds, same warmth. Before Daniel left, the man placed a hand on his arm and said, Remember this kindness. and pass it on. Someone out there needs you the same way you needed me, and Daniel did. From that day on, he made it a habit to notice people, a classmate eating alone, a friend who seemed quieter than usual, a stranger who looked defeated. He became the person he once needed, the person who saw people. And that single act of kindness from a stranger on a cold night didn't just save Daniel. It transformed who he became. It shaped his future. It gave him a purpose. A heart that heals others simply by noticing them. Because that's the truth most people forget. Kindness doesn't end in the moment it's given. It creates a ripple that keeps moving long after the giver is gone. Sometimes the smallest kind gesture becomes the turning point in someone's darkest moment, and humanity still exists. So here's what Daniel learned, and what this story invites you to remember. Be kind, be present, notice people. Your words, your smile, your warmth, they may be the single thread someone is holding onto. And if you are the one struggling, remember, you don't have to walk through the dark alone. There are people, sometimes unexpected people, ready to listen, ready to remind you that your story is not over. If this story touched something in you, don't leave quietly. Tell me in the comments, what is one small act of kindness you'll never forget? And if you want more stories that warm, heal, and challenge the heart, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the next story, you don't want to miss it. This is life's whispered moments. Tune in for more stories of life, love, and lessons.